Welcome to On the Edge with Deneen Dias. My guest today is Scott Soucy. Scott, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Scott Soucy. I'm a principal at Kaufman Rossin, a top 100 Miami-based accounting firm. I actually am headquartered in their Naples office, and I lead the CAS, what we call Outsourced Accounting Services practice at the firm.
Great, and thank you. I'm excited to talk to you today. I've been working with you ever since I came to Bookkeeper, because you very early on, I think, was a Bookkeeper firm. And as I got to know you, you know this because we've talked about this, what I really liked about your way of building this CAS practice is you really kind of separated yourself from the rest of the firm and said no a lot to having the wrong type of clients be a part of your CAS practice. You're very selective about what clients you wanted to take on and the work that you wanted to do. So I'd love for you to share how that was for you, how that's going for you, and why it's, I think, working. Like, it's very important.
Well, I am the person at the firm who has the reputation for saying no the most. And that's a badge of honor for me.
Yeah.
I think accounting firms generally don't like to say no to anything. I know our firm specifically, like most firms, very service oriented. A client wants something, we say sure, we'll get right on it. And it's not that we don't do that from a client assistance standpoint, but we have been very intentional to really build a practice that is scalable, repeatable, and prone to as few mistakes as possible. And that means to me not doing all things for all people. So we have really tried our best to accept clients. We go through as much of a client acceptance process with the client as they go through with us, because they have to have the right mindset. They have to have a certain level of technical ability and technical savvy in order to really operate our system. They have to be responsive. They have to be in certain industries, and they have to be willing to accept our processes. We have a platform. We have very specific processes. We do things one way over and over and over again. And so as a result, it's kind of, I hate to say it, our way or the highway, because the clients who don't conform aren't happy. That discontent results in, bad relationships, and no one wants that. So at the very start, we're all about, we have a system, we have a platform, we have a process. This is how we do it. I hope you are a good fit for our process.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I think there's people probably going to listen to this and they're going to be like, oh, I wish I could do this at my firm, because what you just described is the fastest way to profitability. When you take on those clients that don't fit your right fit type of client, they become a time suck and they become not profitable. But there's a lot of pressure, I think, from partners to take on this tax client and do it at this price point and just help us so we can get the tax work. And it's partners don't like to be told no. And so I think as firms tend to build a CAS practice, they do tend to be generalists because they want to take on these CAS clients and then in 4 or 5 years, they're able to say, oh, all these clients that we took on initially are wrong and they're trying or aren't the right fit, and they're trying to wean out those so they can grow with the right fit. So I think your approach from the get-go was like, this is what we're doing and this is the type of client that is going to work for us.
Well, I'd like to say it was from the get-go, but
Okay.
I think that like most people, we probably started, with a random series of random events. Fortunately for us, very early. So I've been at this at Kaufman Rossin probably 7 or 8 years,
Okay.
and relatively early in the process, the state of Florida experienced something called Hurricane Irma. And if you live in Florida, you know hurricanes by their first name. It's really weird for people who don't live in
Yeah.
hurricane territory. I get it. But Hurricane Irma was somewhat unique in that rather than crossing over the state, it came up through the southern tip of Florida at Marco Island, and it came straight up the state. and it really kind of knocked out internet power, whatever, on both coasts. And
Oh
so
boy.
we have employees on the West Coast in Naples, we have employees on the East Coast in Miami and Fort Lauderdale in Boca, and there were a large number of us, almost all of us, who didn't evacuate, that were without power and without internet for about a week period. And it became very obvious there were people that were going to have to work on clients that they had never seen or touched before. And so that really was the impetus for the standardization, the documentation, and everything that we've put in place today. And it's just expanded. So, we kind of have rules for everything and we have a process for everything.
Yeah, I love process-oriented people because I agree with what you're saying. I think it makes it easier for the staff. If it's different for each client and it's different technology for each client, then it's really hard for the staff to adjust. Some firms will say our differentiator is we will take on any client and customize for them. But again, it's harder for the staff and it turns out to not normally be as profitable as that standardized, very process driven, because the client knows what to expect and the team knows what to expect.
Right. And I think niches are kind of they're a big part of our business. And my personal opinion is the larger your accounting firm, the more difficult it is to specialize,
Mm,
just
okay.
because you have partners from all different disciplines
Right.
coming with their best client. And, even if they fit in the box in all the other categories we talked about, they may not be in the right industry. But I think that that's kind of a self-correcting problem because although I would consider our firm generalists, kind of, we
Mhm.
tend to specialize in about 4 or 5 industries that really are best suited for outsourced accounting. You
So
know,
what are those industries? Can you share?
Absolutely. I mean, so professional services generally would be our number one industry, but it would be, law firms, medical firms, other professional services firms. We have architects, we have interior design, anything that really is a service oriented business is, in my view, very similar. A lot of marketing, communication, advertising agencies. They all kind of cluster around the same set of metrics in terms of utilization and realization and chargeability and all of those kinds of things, profitability by customer, by job. And then we get into some more specialties. We happen to have a fairly large not-for-profit practice. And personally, I really feel like we make the greatest impact with our not-for-profit clients because they have probably come to us with some of the biggest problems. And
Mhm.
we have really been able to get them to another level by bringing our processes to them. And then
Mhm.
financial services. So private equity, portfolio companies of private equity, hedge fund management companies, registered investment advisors. They're all again, they're very prone to being good candidates for outsourced
Which is great because they're all moving to Miami, right? I mean,
accounting. This is
everybody's moving
true.
to Miami. To Florida. Still, I'm a move to Florida. I reload a couple of years ago, so Florida's
Yeah.
booming. Those are great verticals for you. Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess that the other one I would add to that, which is really not industry specific, is the general category of startups.
Hmm.
And startups really are the reason Miami has become a huge startup
Hmm.
city. And startups are really the reason why I have the relationship that I have today with BotKeeper. So it was back again in the early days of BotKeeper, 2016, 17, something like that.
Wow.
And I came across BotKeeper in a LinkedIn post or some social media post. And I reached out, and it was Sally, I think, who
Yeah.
was maybe
Sally
employee
too.
number 3.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
we had a long conversation about BotKeeper. And it just didn't feel right to me at the time in terms of my practice and where you guys were in your kind of evolution.
Agree.
But
Hmm.
it's kind of one of those things that you just keep in the back of your mind. Fast forward 3 or 4 years, and I'm working with a group of private equity venture capital people in Naples who happen to
Okay.
say, "Hey, do you know anything about BotKeeper? We're looking at an investment in it or something
Mm,
like that. And I'm like, well, as a matter of fact, I do. And they started talking about all of the kind of, you know, BotKeeper 2.0 at the
yeah.
time, the legacy platform that had just come out. And so it was time to kind of reintroduce myself to Sally and reacquaint myself with BotKeeper. And the unmet need was we have all of these startup companies and we
Mm,
need a cost-effective solution to
mhm.
provide very minimal services because most of them are pre-revenue, so you don't have a whole lot there. Most of
Right.
them are charging everything on their credit card or bank debit card, whatever the case may be. And so it's really just kind of an accounting function. And to get the accounting behind capitalized software development, research and development tax credit, all that kind of stuff. So it's really just kind of a recording and reporting function, and BotKeeper was ideal for that. So
Mhm.
we started with the startup companies and quickly realized that there was really an opportunity beyond startup companies. We morphed into our higher volume bank feed and credit card feed transactions because at the time I was kind of working with BotKeeper, I was also working with Vic AI.
Uh-huh.
And when I learned that the Vic AI software engine was somehow going to be involved in the BotKeeper
Yeah.
platform, I got very excited about that. I thought it was a great product. We
Yeah.
didn't quite have the bill volume to make Vic AI work
Right.
for us the way it really was designed to work.
Yeah.
But we went from the legacy platform. We became a beta tester of the new Boss platform. We then became a beta tester of BotKeeper Infinite. And I'm very excited about the relationship. We don't have all of our clients on BotKeeper. We have the clients that we think make the most
Right.
sense.
Sure.
We don't
Yeah.
have BotKeeper do everything for us. We only have the things that we think make the most sense. But
Mhm.
we're using you very strategically
Mhm.
to provide the level of service for the appropriate clients for what we need, whether that's a bot kept client or an infinite client.
Well, that's what I really want, and thank you for the. I think that's a great story. I didn't really know that you had passed, but that you came back because you were working with this investment company in Naples that was looking to invest in BotKeeper. That's pretty cool, how it came around. And now I would say that yes, BotKeeper has definitely had a journey, and we definitely had different levels of transitions with our tech. And I love that you've been an early adopter of the accountants program. And now that we're fully focused on firms, I know that we rely on you as a tester of all the new products. And so Infinite that you mentioned has not launched yet. It will be launching at the end of this quarter. And so there's a wait list. I think we have hundreds of firms on the wait list that want to get started with Infinite, which is a tech only offering. And typically BotKeeper is tech and talent. We have hundreds of bookkeepers in the Philippines that take the first pass at coding transactions that the machines don't know how to code. But we've seen now, especially last year, we saw this leap in the machine learning where we have enough data now that our machines are learning and we're accurately coding more transactions. So we feel that for now is a good time to offer the tech only to firms. And a lot of firms want that because they want that kind of control. So since you are a beta tester, I would love for you to talk about what your thoughts are, what your experience has been so far.
So as Brian will attest from your I have an opinion on everything.
Mhm.
And our relationship with BotKeeper has been great because A, we get to see the technology right out of the box. And B, we have regular calls with the development team and they listen because there are many features that we have talked about on those calls that are now showing up in subsequent iterations of Infinite, which, by the way, as you know, I call Scott Keeper, not Infinite.
I love that. And we talked about this. I thought you were calling it Scottfinite for infinite, but it's Scott Keeper. So
Scott
both
Keeper.
of them need
That's what I
people.
call
I love it.
So, so for those of you who may not be familiar with BotKeeper generally, or obviously not the Infinite platform, I really think there's a couple of things that are very exciting about it. The first is obviously the AI. I mean, the AI gets better and better. And as you move to a global vendor model and do all of those things, you become less and less dependent upon QuickBooks bank feeds, individuals clearing bank feeds, all of those things. And truly, not too long from now, hopefully, transactions are just going to happen.
Yeah,
Now, they're still not happening at the right point in time because they're still getting recorded after the fact when they clear the bank, which is
right.
a whole nother problem that we have to solve as accountants. But transactions are just more and more happening. And it's up to the bookkeeper, the accountant, the controller to really kind of put on a different hat and become the financial analyst, not the transaction processor. And that's a big push for us. And so that's a very exciting piece that really is here now.
Mhm.
The other very exciting piece from my perspective is, today the two buzzwords in our industry are CAS 2.0 or whatever version you want to call it,
Yeah.
and from my perspective, app consolidation. We have an
Yep.
overload of applications that people use, and it becomes very confusing just for even accountants who work with it every day to keep up with what's the newest and latest and greatest for, and what app is out there that maybe wasn't the right fit years ago and now
Right.
is.
Evolve.
And
Yeah.
it just becomes overwhelming. And so what we're really trying to do is to try and consolidate apps wherever possible. And one of the big things that I see coming out of Infinite is there are more and more features that are going to lead to that all-in-one platform, whether it's transaction categorization, aka UNCAT, whether it's task management, aka whatever task management tool you're using, whether it's automated journal entries, it's bot review like a Zenit or a Keeper. I mean, we still use all of those tools because you're still in the development phase of them.
Right.
But the fact that we know how we've used those tools for a long time. We know what works. We know what we like about them. We can give that information to the development team
That's
to the
great.
extent the BotKeeper platform has all of those things in one place. It
Mhm.
becomes this extremely powerful tool for accountants to use.
Yeah. And especially I think for CAS practices, because traditionally folks that are building a CAS practice had to rely on other tools that the firm was using for audit and tax and not really geared towards accounting. And that's all we really focus on is we're building for you, for the person who's doing the day-to-day work. And we are building so to help you be more analytical and advisory, because you have the data. And if you get the data as real time as possible and you can see your client's data in really meaningful ways, then and we free you up to be able to not be ticking and tying and coding of all the mundane things, but be able to look at the information differently and talk to the clients about the information differently. So that all the things you said are a big part of our goals and what we're building for firms.
Absolutely. As accountants, we're used to seeing financial statements and we're
Mhm.
used to seeing columns of numbers that foot from top to bottom. And, that's a very unique ability. That's why we're accountants, I guess. Clients don't always think that way and learn that way and understand that way. And so data visualization has become a
Yeah,
big part of our evolution into advisory, and how can we show the same information in a format that is more um, comprehensible by an individual who's maybe kind of approaches numbers and accounting from a different perspective.
I agree. I mean, I think accountants care about the financial statement. Clients just are looking for a couple of things, right? They're looking for
Right,
their cash flow. I mean, and so if you could speak about that more, I think that's very interesting what you said, data visualization. I love that. I'm going to use that term more and more, because how are you talking to the client differently in a way that resonates for them? Can you share like your journey with that? Because firms are still struggling with that, but that, in my mind, is where the true power is in your relationship with your client.
sure. And we struggle with it too because it is a very unique client by client approach.
Right.
So, a startup company that has an entrepreneur who's done this before is going to have a different level of comprehension than the outside board of a not-for-profit company. And
Mm-hmm.
so you really kind of have to tailor both sets to different audiences. But we really like to do things where we can put three pieces of information all on one graph. So current year actual, current year budget, and prior year actual, and you layer them all in the same place, and it really becomes obvious to the client, are we doing better? Are we doing worse? What the problem is? And, whether that's income, revenue, gross margin, whatever the case may be, I think it really just lends itself to being able to see everything in one place. I mean, if I'm
Mm-hmm.
remembering correctly, it's hard to get, you can't get current year, prior year, and budget all in the same QuickBooks report, to my knowledge, I think. And so putting all of that in one place really gives the reader, the user, that information at their fingertips. I
Yeah,
think
and
the other I think the other opportunity that it provides is you can start to educate clients on things that may not be obvious. So, working capital is a great example where you can graph working capital over time for the client to see if their business is seasonal or cyclical and how that impacts their working capital. Be
Mhm.
able to, current ratio, all of those kinds of things, debt to equity, whatever the thing is that you're looking to do, put it in a graph. And I think
Mhm.
it's much more powerful than showing them a calculation on a financial statement.
Yeah, I agree. And then while you were talking, I was really thinking about how what you said is so spot on, like how you talk to a startup technology company versus how you talk to a not-for-profit and their board is night and day different. And so that's why I feel specializing is so important, because you get really good at understanding what your startups want to talk about, and you get really good at understanding what your not-for-profits and the boards want to talk about, or at least what numbers they care about talking about and the impact that it has for them. So that's why I love that you're selective about what clients you work with and you have niches that you specialize in. And I think, to your point, I feel like as the world moves more and more and more away from the mundane towards the advisory, firms are going to move more and more away from being generalists and be more specialists.
Right. I had a very interesting conversation with our chief marketing officer just yesterday as we're looking to roll out more and more marketing and business development tools to really expand the CAS 2.0 relationship and the service line. Her question to me was, well, you've got all of these tools that you've been using for a number of years, KPIs, metrics, et cetera, for, CAS 1.0. Well, how is this different? And I thought it was a great question. And I thought about it and I'm like, okay, I think the easiest answer is all of those tools and metrics in CAS 1.0 are really applied to historical data.
Yeah,
And all of those tools in CAS 2.0 are applied to both historical and forward-looking data.
yeah,
And forecasting and
yeah.
modeling, not just budgeting, but forecasting and modeling, what ifs, all of those
Mhm.
kinds of scenarios are really, I think, going to be a big part of what we as accountants do in the future.
I
And
agree.
it's tough. I mean, it's not easy to build a forecast that's more than just last year times 1.05.
Mhm.
Cash flow forecasting is something that people, including myself, have struggled with forever because,
Mhm.
you can extrapolate based on what's in the historical records, but that may or may not have any bearing on what your plans are, what your future model looks like. And so I think there's a lot of development that's going to continue to go on from a technological standpoint as to how to have better forecasting, better modeling, better prediction skills so that
Yeah.
it accounting as a strategic planning tool.
Yeah. Well, and Bookkeeper's got some things cooking in those areas. And, I run the partnership program. We have partnership that we've put in place that we're working towards to be able to help with that forecasting, to help, again, as we are helping firms save time by doing the low value, low profitable coding of transactions, how can we be an enablers to allow firms to do more of the 2.0, like the forecasting? And then also we announced at AI Unchained that we have a partnership with Google. And so that's coming out next. So first Infinite is launching, and within Infinite is going to be our Google partnership that's going to allow you to, we're going to bubble up trends that the machines are seeing in the data in a way that the human eye doesn't always see. And then we're going to allow you to collaborate with us to say, this is a trend that my client doesn't care about. I don't need to see that trend again. But then if there's trends that you do care about, you can tell us, yes, this trend is very helpful. And so have you seen that yet? Have you seen
We
the,
have not. We have
okay,
not seen that.
all
No,
right.
that's
Well, I'll get you a demo. I need to get you a sneak peek of that because it's we're focusing on Infinite first, but that's coming out next. So that's the kind of stuff that gets me super duper excited. To your point, those are how we're going to really help firms make the switch into talking to the client differently and moving into that 2.0 space.
right. And it's a mindset change for accountants.
Yeah,
I mean,
that
accountants have always been focused on historical
yeah,
information. And it doesn't mean they shouldn't still be focused on historical information, but extrapolating that information to the future is going to be where it's at, going forward.
100%. And we're at time, so I'm going to leave it at that because I'm with you 100%. And I can't thank you enough for joining me today. If anybody wants to get in touch with you, Scott, how can they reach out to you?
I'm on the Kaufman Rossin website. Email address soucy at kaufmanrossin.com. Happy to chat with anyone. As my staff will tell me, they really don't like me to do debits and credits. So I spend most of my time chatting with people, and whether those people are clients, prospects, other accountants, software vendors, I love to do it all. So don't hesitate to reach out.
All right, great. Thank you, Scott. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Take
Bye
care.
bye.